Featuring bangers like spicy Korean fried chicken sandwich with Samjang sauce and kimchi, a fish and chip sub with fried cod, malt vinegar marinated iceberg, and house-made French fries loaded into a sub roll, as well as local beef burgers and a bevy of tasty salads to get you started on those New Year's resolutions we can't wait to hear all about. Not downtown, not Reserve Street, Burn Street.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Tutel and Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, sports talk from Montana for Montana. Live from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. A basketball weekend full of many things about which to speak, and an introductory press conference for two new football coaches at Montana State. Hi, how are you? It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television across the state. Hope you are having a wonderful day. Thanks for being with us here on your Monday. We are happy to be along with you. Appreciate very much being there wherever you are. If you're listening on the radio, outstanding. If you're listening on the television, watching on the television, outstanding. If you are listening on the World Wide Web, well, so much the better. At 1029 ESPN on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find us 1029ESPN.com. There you can listen live on the stream. The stream is available all the time. And it is available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. You can also pick up your phone and call us, 329-1899, 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Rankish Brothers RV phone line. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. First of all, 3 out of 4 teams from the state of Montana in the Big Sky Conference were winners when it comes to men's and women's college basketball, so we will get into that, what took place there. We also have, in about a half an hour from now, looking forward to this Brandon Casey, who is a commit to the University of Montana Grizzly football team. He is an offensive lineman from the Panhandle of Idaho. He's going to join us live on the show, so we will talk about that. We'll get into some women's hoops as well. Then at the top of the hour, Montana State introducing 2 new hires. Jimmy Beal, who's a former Montana State football player and alum of the program, is back as the running backs coach, and Justin Udy is the new offensive coordinator. We'll hear from Jeff Choate and Coach Udy about the new hires and the introductory press conferences, as it were there. So there you go. That is our show today. Looking forward to doing this thing with you. Hi, Colter. How are you, man?
They say it's zoomed in really far on me. So hi, how's everybody doing? Yeah. This is what they need to make me and my fat head look bigger.
Don't worry about it. You know, you need a little bit more FaceTime.
I'm not worried about it. No, I don't. I need no FaceTime, just voice time. If the camera was just on you and we just had my voice, no face, that would be the ideal situation for everybody.
Just my face and you talking all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you need to talk too. This is your show. I just contribute.
No, not the case.
How you doing? You're fatigued.
If people
very fatigued,
people might even, if you listen to this show regularly, you can probably hear it a little bit. But I came down with a little something. I'm fighting through it. I playing with a little pain here today. I'm not in terrible shape, but I'm just off enough where there is a certain amount of kind of sort of dizziness, a little bit left to center on the cold thing, and I got the sniffles, a little bit of a cough. So I'm going to try and
wait to get the flu part.
Keep it all on my side. No, don't do that to me.
I had it all week last week. I just, bucked up.
No, don't do that to me. Now, maybe you are the one who actually did this to me.
I think so.
You know what happened?
I think I did it to everyone.
I loaded up the family yesterday, and we went to Lookout Pass. They have their media day up there that they do annually. And we had a great time. It's a really fun hill, great family hill up there. And obviously easy to get to as well when you talk about just, straight interstate. But I have now been skiing 2 days this year. I've been up for 2 days, and I have taken a grand total of 3 runs. Okay, 3 runs. And by the way, one of those is with my daughter on my shoulders because her ski broke 50 feet from the top. So I love my children, Coulter, you know this. But there are certain days where you go, oh my goodness. So my 2-year-old got on skis for the first time yesterday. My 4-year-old was on them for probably the 3rd or 4th time yesterday, and they did great. And they were actually able to kind of stand up and kind of go down the hill and do the thing. But the bunny slope, But I'm sitting there. I got to do the pizza wedge and hold one kid in one arm and one kid in the other arm. And my wife, God bless her, it was her 3rd day ever putting a board on her feet, so she's just trying to get down the bunny slope just herself. She certainly can't take a child with her. There is nothing more exhausting. Don't talk to me about MMA. Don't talk to me about boxing. Don't talk to me about wrestling. Talk to me about parents taking multiple children up and down the bunny hill all day long, holding on, bent over at the waist, one kid in each arm. If you go up the snowball, God bless you. The rope tow, I mean, gracious, that's 100 times the effort just to get up.
You might as well just walk up the mountain.
Oh, it's impossible. You got a kid trying to sit down on their knees. And, the kid, for some reason, all of a sudden their legs just go straight jelly as soon as they're standing there on these skis. And it's like, well, what in the world is going on with these, kids in there? You could stand up fine. You're running around, the house all the time, and now all of a sudden you can't stand up because you're on skis. I understand they're getting used to it, and they did. They got much better. I think they enjoyed it, but it was an exhausting day, and then this thing set in on me, and now I'm here trying to, fight through a little bit of a cold today.
Vitamin C. I want to see 6 of those gone.
I drink
6 waters.
What do they call this thing? The berry, elderberry. My wife.
Oh yeah, she made me some of that cocktails.
And, reduces it down. So I, had a little of that. I had a little of the traditional Western medicine, couple pills earlier too. So we'll see if I can get through it. In any case, nobody cares about my problems. All right, I had a nice day skiing, and now I'm paying for it. Actually, I didn't have that nice day skiing. My children had a nice day skiing, and now I'm paying the price.
Man, I mean, you are a phenomenal salesman when it comes to media, but you're an even better salesman on pitching me on not having children.
Yeah. Well, you can just borrow mine, which you do from time to time. You get your 30 minutes, and then you're like, okay, see ya.
Well, I could go forever with Kai.
Yeah.
Noodles Express.
Not on the bunny hill, you couldn't. Yeah, I think you got about 4 runs with him on the bunny hill, and that's it. Collapse. Coulter, let's talk a little bit of basketball, shall we? The Montana Grizzlies got an 82-70 win in Moscow, Idaho. Mac Anderson, 15 points and 4 rebounds in this game. Saeed Pridgett, 19-9-4. He just continues to do it every which way, points, rebounds, assists, both ends of the floor. And Kendall Manuel also, by the way, added 14 points. So they get a win, 11 points, strong win. Idaho at home is again, they're the worst team in the league by record. Travis DeCuire said to us, look, this is not the worst team in the league. And by the way, the last time they were here, it was a 4-point game. And by the way, they've lost to everybody by 1 except for Montana State, who destroyed them a Thursday night last week. But nonetheless, this is a team that you do need to beat ultimately at this point in the season. You got to say if you're Montana, and they did it, and they got the thing done. And by the way, Trayvon Allen, 36 points for Idaho. He was outstanding, but he was the only one who was outstanding for the Vandals.
We talked about this with Bobby Moorhead on Friday. I want to ask your opinion on this, though. Montana's defense their defensive strategy, a lot of the principles remain the same, but their strategy has shifted toward not giving any extra attention at all to the star scorer of the opposing team. That's been the strategy for 4 games in a row. Holland Woods scored 39 points. Harold Frey scored 37 points. Jacob Davidson scored 34 points. And Trayvon Allen scored 36 points. Those are 4 of the 7 highest single-game point totals in the league this season. And not to mention, Jarek Harding scored 31 the game before the Bobcat game. So you're talking about 5 straight premier guards have had 31 or more points and as many as 39 points. The strategy is put Timmy Falls on that guy, let him do whatever, but make him frustrated, make him work, And sometimes some of these games have been very efficient, some have not. Some have been a product of the free throw line more than anything else. I mean, Harold Frey shot 12 free throws in the first half alone of the Cat Grizz game. Holland Woods made 21 consecutive free throws during his 39-point night. Trayvon Allen filled it up at the free throw line as well. But to me, the defensive game plan, the Grizzlies went into the locker room at halftime in Moscow, down 1. The shooter for Idaho, excuse me while I look up his name quickly as we continue this analysis, he's a bench guy. He's just a three-point specialist. But he hit all 4 of his three-point attempts in the first half. Gabe Quinnett. I never heard of this kid before until Saturday. He hit all 4 of his three-point attempts in the first half. He had 14 points at halftime. He touched the ball, touched the ball 4 more times the rest of the game, got 1 shot off, and had 0 points. Travis DeCuire said it after the Eastern Washington game. He said, we were not concerned about Jacob Davidson going off because Davidson's going to score 20 no matter what. And if he gets cooking a little bit, he might score 34 like he did in Missoula. Their whole game plan was to let Jack Perry not score, to let Quentin Rouse not score, to let the role players, the three-point shooters, the guys that get buckets off of the star players. So I just want to ask you, what do you think of this sort of newfound evolving defensive strategy? They basically don't care if the number 1 guy goes for close to or a career high. This was Trayvon Allen's career high. It was Harold Frey's career high. It was Holland Woods' career high. I mean, it was Jacob Davidson's career high. So 4 out of those 5 guys had 30-plus points, career highs, going off. But everybody else, nothing.
Yeah.
And that's what has led Montana to victory in every one of those games but the Portland State game.
But like you said, it's the ultimate we only care about ourselves defense for the Montana Grizzlies. They're not interested in what it is that you're doing or who it is that's good. They're going to play their defense. Obviously, I mean, you game plan it up, you watch tape, you prepare a plan and a scheme and all of that kind of stuff. But they're going to play their aggressive, sliding, ball, on-ball defense.
But that's what I'm asking, because the main adjustment, and I think part of this is personnel as well, because they don't want the guys to get in foul trouble. It used to be, if there's any sort of ball screen action on the guy that's playing on the ball, what happens, right? The big guy shows, and it's a pseudo trap to try to make him go outside, right? And then the backside guy has the roller through the lane. It's not a full trap, but it's a partial trap. And then they readjust with their rotation and then get back into position, right? They haven't done that the last 5 or 6 games. They basically scrapped that portion of their defense. They said, on ball, Timmy, you got on ball, or whoever it might be, is playing on ball. You're not going to get much of, if any, help. But just deny on the perimeter and don't let anybody else score.
And the point is that it's not so much, quote-unquote, allowing a guy to score. It's not bringing the requisite help that you need, because the great scorers in this league are going to score if they're one-on-one or just about regardless of who the defender is. And so, ergo, that means we shut everybody else off thing, because you're not leaving, in this case, Quinnett, after he proves that he's going to burn you, to go help on Trayvon. Like, you're just not going to do that now.
And I think also it's a product of what their bigs can and can't do defensively as well. Right. Jared Samuelson is a stretch 5, but he's not, especially with the way his knee has been bothering him so much this year, he's not really that athletic in terms of being able to get out and trap that guy. So I think that you just are way better set to have Jared Samuelson just denying the post, right? Rather than have the show-and-go defense.
For sure.
Mac Anderson, his biggest Achilles heel all year, or his whole career so far, right, has been foul trouble. He's not getting in as much foul trouble because they don't have the same rules, it seems to me, at least, right? And Derek Carter Hollinger is less than 25 games into his college basketball career, so I think that you just keep it simple for him, say, see ball, get ball, just rebound, and play on-ball defense. So, to me, I think it's a schematic adjustment, both for what you're saying, let the premier scorers get theirs, but also those 3 guys I just named are 3 of the 7 guys in the rotation, and the only 3 guys that aren't guards/wingmen, so you got to keep them out of foul trouble.
Totally, no doubt. And I mean, I think this is that style is working right now for Montana, and they're getting wins. I mean, as long as they get a dub, I don't know if they care when or how they get those the wins that they get, but is that something that can stand up down the stretch, and when you get into the conference tournament? That's the thing that I'm interested to find. A couple of numbers from this game, by the way, that I thought are also worth paying attention to, kind of interesting. The Grizzlies were only 3 of 11 from beyond the arc, and they were all, Josh Vasquez, who went 3 of 5. He's the only guy who made a 3. Kendall Manuel was 0 of 4 in this game, and 3-11 from beyond the arc. It's first of all, you're not shooting very many threes anyways, and they go 3 of 11. I know what you're going to tell me about Josh Vasquez, so I'll let you do that in just a second. But comparatively as a team, Idaho's 8 of 16. They didn't get a ton up, but 50% from beyond the arc is absolutely outstanding.
Right.
And by the way, they end up going, for the game, 52% from the field. The Grizz were 57%. So, comparable in terms of the field goal percentages. But usually, if you have a comparable field goal percentage and another team more than doubles, almost triples up your production in terms of made threes, that's huge. And yet, all of those things, you get the thing that you need if you're Idaho. You go 50% from beyond the arc. You score 5 more three-pointers, 15 more points from beyond the arc than do the Grizzlies. Trayvon Allen, the guy who's got to have a big game, has a huge game for 36, and you still lose at home by 11. I mean, you mix that all together, and it's just Montana's just a significantly better basketball team than Idaho. And Idaho's not a great team right now. I mean, we could talk about close losses all day long. The fact is they're, 2-9 in conference, right? So, I'm sorry. I know you've lost a lot of close games, but you're 2-9. So I don't feel that bad for you at this point. Montana is just a flat-out better team. But all those numbers would mitigate in favor of Idaho at some level, and they just, no.
Well, Montana did whatever they wanted in the second half. And part of that was because Mac Anderson had a coming-out party. I mean, Mac Anderson scored 11 consecutive points. He finished with a career-high 15 points. I know it's his career high. I'm not actually sure he's ever even scored in double figures before.
Yeah.
He might have got up to 10 once, but
has Mac Anderson turned a corner this last weekend? I mean, he was outstanding, I thought, against Eastern Washington.
I think Mac Anderson turned a corner when the calendar turned.
Yeah.
I think that what we're talking about, though, with the difference in the defense, has kept him out of foul trouble, and so he's been able to stay on the court.
Right. I mean, the introduction of Jared Samuelson has been such a great complementary feature for him, and
he's also
Samuelson's now been injured and had limited minutes because of his knee and so forth and so on, and we'll see how he's able to get that. But I've been really impressed, man, with Mac Anderson and his progression. Now he's really coming on to be more of just an athletic guy that can do a couple of things, but working his way into a significant feature of this team, both ends of the floor.
And Mac Anderson's also been able to take advantage of some of the matchups, too. I mean, in this league, there's not that many big guys usually ever. I mean, there's really not that many true post-type guys usually, but this year even more so. I mean, Mason Peatling and Josh Patton are the only two guys that really come to mind. I mean, you'd want to say Jabril Bello at Montana State, but he's just been so up and down. When he's good, he's good, but when he's bad, he's sort of irrelevant, and I think that's been odd and perplexing for Montana State. Devin Kirby has not been healthy at Montana State.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, and Sal Nuhu, he didn't play the first matchup against Portland State, and Mac Anderson feasted that game. That was Mac Anderson's best game of the year until these last two. And these last two, Mac Anderson scored 25 points. Well, coming into this weekend, he'd only scored 64 points the whole year. He scored 25 the last 2 weeks. But I think that Anderson's just been able to stay on the court a little bit more. Plus, he's been able to take advantage of favorable matchups. But you want to talk about the job Travis DeCuire is doing right now. This team, more than any team Travis DeCuire's had, every single guy on the team knows their role. Every single guy in the rotation, I should say, knows their role. And I think that their rotation is awesome. It can't be understated how impressive it is to have Josh Vasquez go from starter to bench player. He's going from 30 minutes to 13 minutes. But then when called upon to play 33 minutes like he did against Idaho, he steps up and he scores in double figures. To be ready to have that level of maturity in your preparation and not mope, not woes me. These guys, Kyle Owens, Josh Vasquez, Derek Carter-Hollinger, they're all such big-time recruits for this level. To get those guys to come here under the promise and the premise that they're going to play early, and then have them play early but have the minutes be sporadic, and have all three of those guys be locked in and not be on the outside, not thinking about me, not thinking about the fluctuation in minutes. I mean, Kyle Owens has gone from starter to non-starter. Hasn't missed a beat. He's actually been better coming off the bench. Josh Vasquez, starter or non-starter.
And tell the people what I said you were going to tell them about Josh Vasquez and his three-point shooting.
Well, and this is it. Josh Vasquez missed 18 of his first 19 three-point shots in Big Sky Conference play. He was 1 of 19 going in the Weber State game.
Yeah.
Then he hit 4 in a row, and he's 11 of 15 since then. That's cooking.
It's cooking.
You're
man.
sizzling.
Yeah.
But we knew it was coming because he's not as if Kyle Owens took some bad shots toward the beginning of conference play. His shot selection's gotten a lot better. Derek Carter Hollinger, I think, has exceptional shot selection for a young guy.
He does.
So does Josh Vasquez, though. Josh Vasquez was not missing contested or forced or bad shots. He was only shooting it when he was wide open on the kick when the ball is swung to him. You knew it was only a matter of time, and now he's starting to click in. But I think it can't be understated the fact that, this day and age, think about some of the guys that Coach DeKeers had in the past. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus by name, but there's been guys that were talented freshmen and sophomores that when their minutes would fluctuate, they would sit there and pout. They're not partying with their teammates. They're not celebrating. They're not smiling. They're not having fun. All three of these freshmen are having fun. And I think that's the brilliance of it. I think that's the brilliance of Travis DeKeers coaching, because then they can all prop up the other guys, the veterans, the Timmy Falls, Syed Pridges, and Jared Samuelsons of the team.
Stu Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. So the Grizzlies stay on top by a half game of the Big Sky Conference. They are 9-3. Montana State, they had a huge win by like 22 or something like that over Idaho, and then went to
72-50, yep,
and got boat raced.
Disgusting.
Against Eastern Washington. One of the ugliest games, especially offensively, that you're going to see. They lose 74-49, and shot
it was uglier than that, man.
22% from the field. They scored 5 points in the final 12 minutes and 15 seconds of the first half.
And that was after a 2 of 20 start from the floor.
Yeah, well, that's part of the 2 of 20 start.
No. They had 11 points on 2 made field goals because they got all their opponents on, and then they got 5 more points after that. So in other words, the horrendous shooting start, it didn't get any better.
Yeah, 16 points at halftime for Montana State. Just bad all the way around. Here's what Danny Sprinkle said after the loss.
They came out hungry, and they came out with a point to prove, and they proved it. And we didn't match the intensity. And, I thought once, we weren't making shots early, and credit to them, their defense was outstanding, especially in the first half. They made it really tough on Harold, and they were really contesting shots at the rim. I think they had 6 blocks at halftime. I thought their energy and their urgency and their focus was a lot better than ours tonight.
No doubt. Amin Adamu, 1 of 11. Harold Frey, 1 of 5, only got 5 shots.
Career low?
Kevin.
He had a career low. Harold Frey had a career low.
4 points for Harold Frey. Caleb Bellish led all scorers for the Bobcats with 10. He only player in double figures. So it was, it's just, there's nothing good to say about this game.
No, there was
Montana
nothing
State.
good to say about it.
It's all bad, but it's interesting because here in this conference where it had been through the halfway point, a whole bunch of close games, now we're getting blowouts in multiple directions for the Bobcats the last 2 games.
Well, this is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Two points here. First of all, I think that Danny Sprinkle deserves a lot of credit from just the broad improvement of effort defensively, but also just the revitalization of interest in basketball. It's not as if, Brian Fish deserves a lot of credit for bringing basketball back at Montana State, too. The Bobcats the last couple of years, because Tyler Hall was so talented, they largely could be considered a disappointment.
Yeah.
But they were getting less than 2,000 a game when Fish took over, and he got into the mid-2,000s and low 3,000s, and now Sprinkle's got it into the low 3,000s. Local guy that played at Montana State. So they've been really good at home.
Yeah.
Especially proportionally. What they look like at home compared to what they look like on the road, especially against good Big Sky Conference teams, it's vast. It's much different, and I think that is something that they got to work on going forward. I thought they looked terrible on Saturday. I thought it was a low point of the season for them, honestly. But the other thing worth mentioning in terms of the scope of that game, this is where officiating comes in and the inconsistency in officiating. I'm not saying the officials are bad. I'm just saying that the games are not being called across the board. Harold Frey got every call he wanted in Missoula. Montana was trying to knock him off the spot. That's what everybody in the league's trying to do.
Yeah.
Trap Frey, be physical with him. Well, Frey shot 13 free throws in the first half. He made 12 of them. He had 25 points at halftime. In Cheney, no calls. And again, I'm not saying it's one way or the other or biased or anything like that, but the difference in 1 week is the difference between 33 points for one guy.
Yeah.
Frey didn't get any calls, none, on Saturday, and he couldn't get in any sort of rhythm. But here's the thing I want to talk to you about broadly around the league. Midpoint of the league season, the biggest guy had played more close games. I think that Ken Palm had him at 41% of games decided by 4 points or less, the highest percentage in the entire country. And you mentioned now, though, that there's been even just the first 3 to 4 games of the second half of league play, all sorts of blowouts. This is what I'm always talking about. When you've been knocking on the door and it's not quite going your way, at what point do you tap out? Being 1-5 with 5 points by 13 points or less like Idaho, that's one thing. Being 2-9 and having no chance to climb your way into a bye, what's the incentive?
Right, and now you lose by 25 and 11 even on a night that you played pretty well in a lot of ways.
So the teams I think we got to watch for, Weber State's got it rolling a little bit now, so I expect them to surge in terms of the teams that are in the bottom half.
Yeah.
But we got to watch the initiative to play for Sac State, Idaho State, and Idaho, because those 3 games could become easier games than what they were the first half, simply because of effort.
Yeah. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. On the other side, Brandon Casey, new commit to the Montana Grizzly football team. He's an offensive lineman from the Panhandle of Idaho, and this is a guy that Coach Houck and the rest of the crew are very, very high on. He's going to join us right after this. Boys and girls, at the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. The Silver Slipper is your sports headquarters. 56 televisions to watch sports on. They got drink specials every single day, a full liquor store, Tarantino's Pizzeria, and the friendliest staff in town. Visit thesilverslipperlounge.com for more info. Stop by today to see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets, across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Alignment and Brakes and Shocks and Wheels and Tires. Some tire places don't offer all that, but we do to help keep you safe. It's our Les Schwab Founders Celebration. Get $50 off an alignment. That's nearly half off regular price when you purchase 4 Reputation or Open Range AT tires all month long. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Alignment and Brakes and Shocks and Wheels and Tires. Some tire places don't offer all that, but we do to help keep you safe. It's our Les Schwab Founders Celebration. Get $50 off an alignment. That's nearly half off regular price when you purchase 4 Reputation or Open Range AT tires all month long. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
Hey, boys and girls, Ryan Tutel and Colton Nuanez here, and hope you know by now that Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast series, is out and available wherever you get your podcasts. Interviews with every single one of the living University of Montana head men's basketball coaches. We are releasing week by week, and this week, Colton, one of our favorites, Blaine Taylor.
Native son of the Garden City, a star basketball player at Missoula Hellgate, a star in his own right for the Montana Grizzlies as a player and the head coach for the duration, or almost the duration, of the 1990s. Blaine Taylor, definitely one of the most well-liked and memorable members of this epic coaching tree.
Just search Grizz Greats wherever you get your podcasts and listen to all 3 episodes that are out now with the first 3 coaches and the bonus episodes accompanying them, and now episode 4 with Blaine Taylor. Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast, is brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, the company that connects you more, the Bryan brothers and Mike Nugent at Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, and Stockman's Bar proud supporters of Montana basketball for 50 years.
Your favorite place in the world besides Montana is Seattle, right, Gus?
That's right. The only thing I've been missing since I moved back to Montana, teriyaki on every street corner.
Well, if you want real Seattle-style teriyaki, you got to hit up Dobie's Teriyaki downtown. And if you need a reason to try it, Tutel Nuanez, we got you covered. We're going to be giving away free Dobie's Teriyaki every single day the first 2 weeks of February on Tutel Nuanez.
Does the philanthropy no end?
We are very good to our listeners. So tune in to Tutel Nuanez 4 to 6 every day, 102.9 ESPN Radio.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel. Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Dante Olson is heading to Indianapolis. The 2019 Buck Buchanan Award winner and two-time All-American linebacker from the University of Montana has been invited to the NFL Combine, as we reported last week. Olson is one of 337 prospects who's been invited to Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis to test in front of NFL scouts, executives, and coaches February 27th through March 1st. The linebackers will go February 29th. At 6'3", 247 pounds, Olson is also currently slated as a late-round draft pick in the NFL draft, which is April 23rd through April 25th.
All Montana's Big Sky Conference basketball teams other than the Montana State men earned wins on Saturday to keep pace in the league title race. The Lady Grizz started off the successful Saturday by completing the weekend sweep with a gritty 69-60 win over second-place Idaho and Missoula. The MSU women continued rolling, drilling hapless Eastern Washington 79-47 in Bozeman. The MSU men were on the wrong end of a 74-49 blowout at Eastern Washington and Cheney, and the Montana men completed their weekend sweep by outlasting a scrappy Idaho squad 82-71 in Moscow Saturday night.
The Grizz men moved to 9-3 in Big Sky play after their win. They went 20 of 30 from the field in the second half, so that's very good. Trayvon Allen still at 36.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Welcome back to Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Outstanding to be with you on this Monday afternoon as we get into a little bit of Grizz football, and why not? It is February 10th, after all, boys and girls. Hey, if you're looking for us on the social medias, you just go right ahead at 102.9 ESPN on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find Coulter and myself at Gus Tutel and at Skyline Sports MT on the Twitter. We go down to the Reagan Brothers RV phone line. We welcome in a University of Montana Grizzly commit to the football team, signed his national letter of intent, and is going to be an offensive lineman for the Montana Grizzlies in the coming seasons from Sandpoint, Idaho. Brandon Casey on the line. Brandon, thanks so much for being with us, man. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're really happy to have you here, Brand. We're excited to have you on the phone now, and then eventually playing football at the University of Montana. Excited to see that. What was it been like for you the last year or so as a guy who's a pretty highly recruited kid and looking for places to play football and trying to come to a decision? What's that process like for you?
It's just a lot of trying to just figure out what I want. Ultimately, it just came down to the coaches, the atmosphere, and the guys I'm playing with.
Brandon, hey, Coulter Nuanez here. I'm actually the one that initially reached out to you. Thanks so much for making some time for us today, man. But take us through just the recruiting process in general. When did Montana first land on your radar? Where did they kind of fit in terms of other schools that were recruiting you? And you mentioned why they rose to the top, but I know that the coaches have told us here that you got some late interest from several different schools, including maybe a Pac-12 school too. So what was the process like for you in terms of when Montana first started recruiting you, and what made you stick with the Grizz throughout the entire thing?
Yeah, so early in the spring I went around to the camp circuit, and I got 5 Big Sky offers. And out of all the Big Sky schools, Montana was obviously my favorite. And so I committed just before my high school football season. And then late in the game, I think a few days before signing day in December, Oregon State offered me, and I actually went out there and went on an official visit. But ultimately, I felt like Montana was my home. So I guess towards the end it got pretty chaotic, but throughout the spring and throughout the summer it was pretty smooth. Just, honestly, my decision was pretty simple. I wanted to go to Montana.
Interesting, because Oregon State's coach is Jonathan Smith, who's the new head coach out there. He used to be a coach at Montana. I know he's got a couple guys on his staff that have Montana ties. He also has a couple former Montana State coaches on his staff. So there's a lot of guys that are familiar with Montana. But this day and age in recruiting, the glitz and glam of the Power Five seems to be such an allure for recruits. Well, was it hard for you to end up choosing Montana, or did it just feel like that good of a fit for you?
Yeah, I mean, it felt that good of a fit for me. I mean, it was obviously hard, just because I didn't want to regret anything, but at the same time, I knew in my gut, and I couldn't argue with that.
Brandon Casey joining us, the offensive lineman from Sandpoint, Idaho, will be coming to the University of Montana to play football for the Grizzlies. And Brandon, it was interesting because Coach Houck, when he was going through all of the signees in this last National Signing Day, said, they treat Sandpoint or the peninsula of Idaho or the panhandle of Idaho, not the peninsula. I guess you're not surrounded by water, are you? You're surrounded by land, aren't you, there on the panhandle?
Yep.
But
you are kind of surrounded by water.
There
with
is
Lake
water
Ponder,
there.
right?
Yeah, there's water there.
I mean, hell, that's as deep as the ocean, too. I think that, seriously, I think that Lake Ponder is the deepest inland freshwater lake in the United States.
Is that right? What about Crater Lake?
They test submarines at the bottom of Ponder. That's how deep it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if it's number one, but it's pretty close.
Have you gone into a submarine yet, Brandon?
No. I mean, I think they used to do that, but I don't think they do that anymore.
Okay.
See, my grandma used to run Doc Bird's Ranch out there in Sandpoint, and my dad, every time we'd be fishing on the lake, he'd always tell me, you better be careful. A submarine's going to come get you.
Oh, boy. Okay. That sounds like just trying to keep your kid in line through fear. That's what that sounds like. So, Brandon, back to my original question, though. Coach Houck was saying, they treat the panhandle of Idaho a lot like it's just sort of in-state almost, just because, especially on the western side of Montana, it's actually closer than, the east side of the state of Montana. But growing up in Sandpoint, and you're in, a state with Idaho State, but also very close to both Eastern Washington and the University of Montana, what's your perception of sort of the Big Sky Conference and the nearness and all that kind of stuff? How much do the state lines themselves actually, matter in that sort of situation?
Yeah, so being so close to all those schools as I grew up, I mean, we watched all of them, really.
Right.
Because they were so close. It wasn't really that big of a deal to, to go to Eastern Washington or go to Montana or to go to Idaho. State lines were never really, that set in stone for us when it came to football, at least. So when I got my Montana offer, it was obviously, out of all the Big Sky, I was like, I was so excited. And so, like, when it comes to state lines, I mean, we're in the panhandle of Idaho, so it's not really the biggest part of the state.
No doubt. 74 miles or something like that on I-90 to get across. So when you look at the University of Montana, their history at your position, offensive line, has, some outstanding players who have gone to the University of Montana, developed, and then gone on to play, at the next level, and in some cases with outstanding careers. When you look at the Grizzlies, how much are you aware of that history? How much do they talk to you about that, about wanting to sort of get back to that place with the dominant lines and all that kind of thing? I mean, was that worked into what they came and pitched you on when they were trying to get you to go?
Yeah, so me and Coach Peace created a relationship really early, but I actually talked a lot to Coach Germer, and he tells me all about that stuff and like the DOLA mentality and just like you said, the past guys that have created such a legacy through the University of Montana.
Did you come on an official visit here?
I did.
So was it during did you come for the playoff game?
No, I wasn't here for the playoff game, but so my official was in January, but I went to 3 games this season.
Oh, sweet. So you were able to come official and unofficial.
Yeah.
So just your overall experience in Missoula, coming to Washington Grizzly Stadium, watching a game, checking out campus, checking out Missoula as a town, and checking out the Champion Center, all the facility upgrades that Montana has gone through. How much did that influence your decision? What did you think of just Missoula in general?
so I love Missoula, and all that stuff, the Champions Center, all of that was obviously a big part of my decision, just because of how nice everything was. And I mean, it's really nicer than all the Pac-12 schools I went to be honest with you. And then watching the games was obviously, I mean, I was like set. Just a packed Washington Grizzlies stadium, how loud it was, just the overall atmosphere. Like, I mean, how could you not want to play on that?
Do you think that when you met Coach Germer, were you like, there's no way this guy teaches offensive line? Right? He doesn't look like an offensive line coach, does he?
I mean, I didn't. That thought never crossed my mind because we started talking football, and it was pretty obvious that he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, well, I think, to look at him, he probably does know what he's doing. Yeah, no doubt about it. He's been at it a long time.
Yeah.
Coach Hauck has been, since he came back to Montana, has talked all about getting Montana back on track, returning to the heights that Montana was once at. Did you have any awareness of the Grizz when you were growing up? And if not, or if so, either way, how important is that to you to be a part of what Coach Hauck has said? I mean, return to dominance, get the Grizz back to a national championship level.
Yeah, so I remember when Coach Hauck was in his first stint there and how dominant Montana was, and that was a big reason why that was another reason why I came, is just to return to that dominance and to win another national championship. And and Coach Hauck, we talked a lot about that, and I was confident. I was confident with the direction the program is going, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Well, Brandon, we appreciate you being here with us. We'll look forward to your time for the Grizzlies at the University of Montana and watching you develop here over these next several years. All right? Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. Can't wait.
You bet. Brandon Casey, future University of Montana Grizzly offensive lineman, will be coming to play in the state of Montana at the University of Montana in the fall. So look forward to that. Thanks to him for joining us here. Take a quick break. You got something you want to say?
Well, I mean, I think that Coach Hauck is funny intentionally and unintentionally for a lot of different reasons. His steadfast premise that Big Sky schools don't beat Mountain West and Pac-12 schools for kids is an interesting one, because I think that it actually does happen.
Well, did he include Mountain West? Really, he's including Power 5, right? Like
he said Power 5, but he also said, we hardly go heads up against Mountain West schools either. I think he's talking more about the San Diego States of the world than he is about the Nevadas of the world, but that's a state of the program. But here nor there, it's like, David, our producer, he's a Mountain West guy. He's a Wyoming grad. So we were talking about just
Poinsettia Bowl, David, is that the last bowl game the Wyoming Cowboys were in?
Won the Arizona Bowl this season.
Nova
Home Loans Arizona Bowl.
You know what? That's my mistake, because that was a big deal. Certainly, they did win this year with Craig Bowl, and then the 2016 Poinsettia Bowl, which was the last Poinsettia Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
They didn't even win that game. They lost to BYU.
Oh, heartbreaker.
And we were talking about just
the spread, though.
Graph. Good. That's what he wants.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But as David and I were talking about, though, I mean, there's certainly tiers, and a lot of times when you beat a Mountain West school, for example, if you're a Big Sky school, that guy, if just in terms of his baseline talent, would likely go to the Mountain West school and probably not play, whereas he could come to the Big Sky and play. But also, I think that disregards just the element of development, and a lot of times guys can become, by the time they're done in the Big Sky, they could have been even as good as an all-league player in the Mountain West if their development accelerates. But also on the other side of the coin, they could be nowhere close to good enough and probably even end up transferring back to the Big Sky. So to me, so much has to do with what happens in the next 5 years, especially at a position like offensive line. Jeff Choate made an interesting comment. We'll hear from Coach Choate about his new offensive coordinator in the second hour. But Choate was saying that he thinks that at the Power 5 level, offensive and defensive linemen and corners are the easiest position to evaluate, because there's such a cut and dry, you either can or you can't. It's like Choate said, when you look at Dante Fowler Jr., who he coached at Florida, or you look at Danny Shelton, who he coached at Washington, you know that guy can play in the respective conferences that those schools are in one play. All you have to do is see one play of Danny Shelton. You're like, oh, That guy can play in the Pac-12 or anywhere, including the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? But he said at the Big Sky level, so much of it is figuring out the measurables, but the intangibles, the attitude, not just how it projects, because what you're going to become physically, that's one thing, but do you have the toughness? Do you love the game? Do you love the grind? So often you're not going to play for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, especially on the offensive line. So how do you get to that point where you're a fourth-year junior who's hardly played at all, who's ready to be a plug-and-play potential all-conference guy? That's what Montana did so well under Bobby Hauck the first time around, was having guys that got hardly any reps be ready to roll right away. So I think that that's going to be the key for Brandon Casey. But when you talk about beating a Pac-12 school like Oregon State, his baseline talent is higher. Now it's a matter of, does he have that love for it to continue to develop? It seems to me, I mean, he was a great kid. He seemed like a really good kid who is really excited to be here. To me, that's the most important.
Sorry. I've got a cold. I can't think. I'm sorry I hit the wrong button to shut you off. That is the most important part, though, Coulter. You're right about that. Good point by you. Usually when I mute you, it's on purpose, and just to get you angry with me. That was an accident. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Boys and girls, we love giving away things around here. Stick with us. Next segment, we're going to talk a little Lady Grizzly Cat basketball, and we're going to give away gift card to Dobie's Teriyaki. Okay, so you want to get yourself some chicken teriyaki, stick with us for that. And also, want to remind everybody, this week, coming up this weekend, it's Valentine's Day, and you haven't gotten your wife, your girlfriend, your significant other a gift. You know how I know? Because I haven't. And you're listening, so you're like me. I just universalize myself to everybody else out there. Anyway, Kindred Skin and Soul, we got a $50 gift card for you. We're going to give that away this week. So stay tuned to Tutel Nuanez for that. And we gave one away last week. We're going to give away another one. And because this goes hand in hand, this is another great Valentine's Day present. We're giving away a bunch of tickets over the next 2 weeks to go see Korn. February 23rd, Adams Center. Korn playing with Breaking Benjamin. Going to be a fantastic show. We got tickets for you to that for the next 2 weeks. So just so you know, this is what you can look forward to. Facials and Korn and teriyaki.
Romance your Valentine at the Montana Club with our 4-course Lover's Delight for 2, featuring Parmesan crusted artichoke hearts, succulent king crab legs, perfectly grilled Angus steaks, and a grilled lobster tail, followed by our luscious vanilla bean cake with fresh raspberries. Just one of the mouth-watering options to be savored on our special Valentine menu, served February 13th through the 16th at the Montana Club. See the full menu at montanaclub.com on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey guys, you ever heard of Magic Johnson?
Rings a bell.
One of the greatest basketball superstars of all time played for a man named Judd Heathcote at Michigan State. And guess what? Judd Heathcote started his career at the University of Montana.
Coulter, did you know that 2 former University of Montana head coaches have been head coaches in the NBA and 1 on Team USA?
Isn't that amazing?
And that's why we've created Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast. Get it wherever you get your podcast. Just search Grizz Greats.
It's a phenomenal and historic podcast series proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. Your favorite place in the world besides Montana is Seattle, right, Gus?
That's right. The only thing I've been missing since I moved back to Montana, teriyaki on every street corner.
Well, if you want real Seattle-style teriyaki, you got to hit up Dobie's Teriyaki downtown. If you need a reason to try it, Tutel Nuanez, we got you covered. We're going to be giving away free Dobie's Teriyaki every single day the first 2 weeks of February on Tutel Nuanez.
Does the philanthropy no end?
We are very good to our listeners. So tune in to Tutel Nuanez 4 to 6 every day, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Gus, remember how scared you were to get a facial before you had one at Kindred Skin and Soul?
I'd had one before in Southeast Asia and didn't realize it was going to feel like getting hit in the face with a bat.
The experience downtown, though, was much better, right?
It didn't scar me emotionally or physically. It was pleasant and wonderful in every way.
Valentine's Day is coming up, gents, and we know you have not gotten your lady a present, so tune in to Tutel Nuanez over the next 2 weeks for your chance to win a $50 gift card at Kindred Skin and Soul, downtown Missoula.
Tutel Nuanez, 4 to 6 every weekday, ESPN Radio.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
'Cause he's an old hippie and he don't know what to do. Should he hang on to the old? Should he grab on to the new? He's an old hippie. This new life is just a bust. He ain't trying to change nobody. He's just trying real hard to adjust.
Boys and girls, hi. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. The Lady Grizz, the Lady Cats, both winners over the weekend. In fact, both sweepers over the weekend. 2-0 in games on Thursday and Saturday for both women's basketball teams. We'll get into that. Before we do, though, let's just. I mean, my stomach is grumbling. You know, I'm sure everybody else's is as well. We're coming up on 5 o'clock. We got something for you. How about $15 to Dobie's Teriyaki downtown in Stockman's Bar? They are set up in there permanently. You go in, lunch, dinner, whenever. It is the perfect Seattle-style teriyaki spot. And by the way, the only Seattle-style teriyaki spot. And if you've spent time in the Pacific Northwest, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go there and find out, because this is what it's about. 329-1899. Call right now, 329-1899. We got a $15 gift card for you to Dobie's Teriyaki. By the way, if you go in there, if you don't win it from us right now, you go in there, you tell them Tutel Nuanez sent you down there, you're still going to get $1 off anyway. So they're going to, I mean, it's already actually a fairly healthy and very inexpensive way to eat. And now you're getting an extra $1 off just for saying our names in there.
And it's already cheap, so that's like a 12 or 15% discount depending on what you get.
Great.
I'm telling you, too, we like to eat. This is big. This is big portions. This is 2 meals for me.
You're getting all the way home on this one.
And if you want to have a little beer, wash down your spicy teriyaki, $2 draft at Stockman's if you order Dobie's Teriyaki
there you
as
go.
well.
Take $1 off of that, so you're saving money all over the place.
And if you really want to, you can do yourself a favor, too, and talk some Seattle sports with Brett and the boys. They got some sweet memorabilia. They got the Ken Griffey Jr. in there. They got the Sean Kemp, the Gary Payton.
And right here on the Seattle Seahawks NFL home in Western Montana.
That's right.
You know, so that's the way it should be. All right, very good. 329-1899 for that.
Speaking of Seattle, are you so stoked about your Rage Against the Machine Tacoma stop?
I didn't even want to talk about it.
You're not even going to come back.
I didn't even want to talk about it because I don't want other people to just compete with me on this. So
I'm going to be doing tryouts for a new co-host as of April 28th, because that's the day that Ryan disappears from all of our lives forever.
I have a pretty big run coming up for me, Colter. Korn, as we talked about, February 23rd, I will be there. Tool, March 14th in Boise, Idaho. Coincidentally, a night that I'll be in Boise, I'm going to that. And now, God help us, Rage Against the Machine. Their tour, by the way, that they announced today, Rage Against the Machine, it's like, I'm not kidding you, it's like 40 to 50 dates. I mean, it is.
Is this the swan song?
Well, I don't think so. I think this is the return.
They're going to Sioux Falls.
They're going to Sioux
Falls,
that's right.
South Dakota.
And also Prague. I mean, they're doing the whole thing.
We can tease about shows like Sioux Falls, but in terms of young folks with some angst and some pent-up energy, and I mean, I bet you that show is among the most hardcore shows on the whole stop.
Oh, absolutely.
The small Midwestern towns, those are the people that go the most nuts for these hardcore rock bands.
And also, I mean, there's a lot of political conversation to be had in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, right about now.
Certainly.
For a band like Rage Against the Machine. So, you talk about BlackRock and all that. So there's good reason to be in Sioux Falls. You're doing a bunch of Canadian dates, European.
I know that Calgary
Eastern
one on my
European.
birthday. That one's looking pretty nice too.
See you there. 2 weeks. What? How about this? We go Vancouver. We go Portland, Tacoma, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary. 5 straight.
Sign it up.
I know this tour more than I know anything about sports.
That 100%.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. By the way, we got 2 minutes left. Shall we do this quickly? The Lady Grizz have now won 4 of 5. They got
the one loss being to the first place Montana State
That's
Bobcats.
right. And I mean, here's what I want to do here. They beat Idaho, was the second place team in the Big Sky Conference. Yep. Great win for the Lady Grizz, who had lost by 1 point in Moscow. Avenged that loss. They are now 4th in the Big Sky Conference. The Lady Grizz are. I asked you if when we watch Montana State and Montana playing, the women, if we were watching the 2 best teams in the Big Sky Conference, because at least from a talent standpoint, I think you could very easily argue that you were. And the Lady Grizz, I mean, the way that they lost to Montana State for them was just so demoralizing, and it seemed to accentuate all of the negative things about the program that we've seen recently.
Totally.
Okay? But also, this is a team in Montana State that's 3 games out in front of everybody else. That is clearly the best team in the Big Sky Conference, and they had them dead to rights at home. They've now won 4 of 5, with the 1 loss being that game, and they're a whisper from having won 5 in a row, and you're sitting here looking at this. So you can't say that they have, because they haven't, but 4 out of 5, including a win over the number 2 team in the Big Sky in Idaho, and, a very competitive game, if nothing else, against Montana State, and the Lady Grizz have some momentum here right now in Montana State. I mean, they're just rolling. They're just rolling.
Absolutely. Montana State has the feeling of a really, really special team, because they're the type of team that they can win even when they don't play well. They can win even when certain players don't play well, or they can win even when certain players. It's not even as if Fallon Friggi didn't play well this weekend. Like against Eastern, they didn't even need her. They only played her for about 20 minutes. They really took some minutes off of her. To me, she's going to be the MVP of the league if they continue to roll. And statistics, throw them out the window, doesn't matter. She's not going to be one of the top 5 leading scorers. They're just so balanced. She's going to be the MVP.
She's the best player on what is right now far and away the best team.
But in terms of the Lady Grizz, I mean, I haven't seen the NAU women live, but Montana has a win over the NAU women, and that's the only team between them and Montana State in the standings. Then Montana now is tied with Idaho, a game back in the win column of NAU. So the Lady Grizz are right there, and I think that one thing. I'll admit, I'll take this. When we analyze sports, we oftentimes analyze them based on the prestige and previous expectations of the program. That's more true with the Lady Grizz than any other team that you and I talk about on these airwaves. I covered the Lady Grizz when it was not even in the realm of consciousness that they could lose home games in league. It wasn't even part of the equation. It was not happening. So I think that I am too harsh on them a lot of times. I think this team is better. I think they are better than what they have been. It'll be interesting to see how they finish, because they do have 6 out of their, I guess, is it 5 out of 8 or 6 out of 9 on the road? But most of their remaining schedule is on the road. So we'll see how it goes.
Been banged up, but not banged up in the way that they have been. We're talking about season-ending injuries. You're talking about injuries to some girls who can and have come back, and if they can continue to get more healthy, who knows? It'll be interesting.
And it's one of those deals where you can't make too much of the Bobcat loss, because they've won 4 out of 5. They blew it against their rival, but if you take away the name on the front of the jersey, you just say, oh, well, the first-place team who's out in front of everybody just came back because they're just that team, right? So I just think that the Lady Grizz just need to continue to work, but when Abby Anderson's healthy, she gives them a distinctly different defensive presence, and when they get up and down and run and rebound, they can play with anybody in the league. They just need to figure out how to do it consistently. But I will admit, I've been too harsh on them, I think. 4 out of 5, especially when you're beating teams like Idaho, it's a good stretch for the Lady Grizz.
Justin Udy, Jimmy Beal, 2 new coaches on the offensive staff at Montana State. They had their introductory press conferences today. We will hear from Justin Udy and head coach Jeff Choate, the top of hour number 2 right after this. Hey, at the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. The Silver Slipper is your sports headquarters. 56 TVs to watch on, drink specials every single day, a full liquor store, Tarantino's Pizzeria, and the friendliest staff in town. Visit online, thesilverslipperlounge.com for more info, and stop by today to see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets, across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks.
If you weren't listening to Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio this week, here's what you missed.
I thought, man, this guy might score 50 and they're still going to lose.
Hello, Montana.
As just looked like deer in the headlights. Then there was really nothing going on.
There is no give to their take.
I think the ultimate frustration from basketball fans is when you literally can't get a stop.
I said that I would not be shocked if Montana State went ahead and won this basketball game. It wasn't long into the game, though. It was very clear that that wasn't going to happen.
In a sweet irony for the Grizzlies and a cruel irony for the Bobcats, the Grizzlies gave the Bobcats a taste of their own medicine in terms of what the Bobcats have done to the Grizzlies the last 3 years.
Travis DeCuire, he is the alpha dog. He is the tip of the spear of the whole program and everything else, and there is no question about that.
The rivalry in terms of the fanfare around it has taken a slight step back, and it's because the Grizz have won 18 out of 19 times.
There is no question. Head and shoulders, the most versatile player in the Big Sky Conference is Saeed Pridgeott, and it's not close.
Nah, I'm not even going to go down that road.
Travis said, wait, did you come out of the game? And he said, yeah. He goes, I took you out? He goes, yeah. He goes, oh, I'm sorry.
You could just call it dumb.
Well, it's about time that we had our first ever NHL player come in here and talk to us a little bit.
My journey to the NHL, definitely unconventional. I played my first NHL game when I was 29. You know, I grinded it out in the European leagues, kind of worked my way up all the way to Sweden. I persevered.
Derek Ryan joining us from the Calgary Flames.
For a hockey player, you always dream of playing hockey night in Canada, Saturday night in Canada. It's pretty fun.
Ted, in 1763, who was the great-grandfather of the man who would eventually lose Super Bowl V. I'm just kidding, Ted.
Okay. Maybe one of the two guys that were younger.
Good choice. Look at you.
Even Idaho, who's in last place, is more dangerous to me than Idaho State.
Yeah. Shante Lagan's joining us. He's the head coach of Eastern Washington.
When you got guys that could dribble, pass, and shoot in pretty much almost every position, it makes it pretty easy to coach. I always tell the guys, to be unpredictable, it's pretty hard to guard if you're unpredictable.
Todd Simon's got these guys playing their butts off on defense. They straight guard you.
We don't care.
You watch Southern Utah warm up.
Well, certainly undeniable the bodies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You watch these guys warm up, you're like, excuse me?
That is a ticket to abide.
Those guys were so physically impressive. I know the kid knows how to win.
I remember.
A guy that can play safety in the Pac-12 should be able to play corner in the FCS.
This was an anomaly.
I just think that you can out-recruit yourself to death.
They're better than you need to get better. I thought I was going to hate this. I thought that this was not going to be a good thing. Go get it done.
Tutel and Nuanez from 4 to 6 every weekday afternoon on 102.9 ESPN Radio, Montana's best sports talk.
If you are hurt or disabled, you may be entitled to benefits from an insurance company or Social Security. I'm Chris Helmer, an attorney at Clark Fork Law Offices. Our Missoula firm specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. There are many unknowns when injured or disabled. The other side is fighting hard. You should too. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Dante Olson is heading to Indianapolis. Olson, the 2019 Buck Buchanan Award winner and two-time All-American linebacker at the University of Montana, has been invited to the NFL Combine. Olson, one of 337 prospects invited to Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis to test in front of NFL executives, scouts, and coaches. Linebackers are slated to work out on February 29th. The 6'3", 240-pound Olson is currently slated as a late-round pick in the NFL Draft, which runs April 23rd through the 25th.
Well, Montana's Big Sky Conference teams over the weekend won, except for Montana State. The Lady Grizz started off the successful Saturday by completing the weekend sweep of Eastern and Idaho with a 69-60 win over the Vandals in Missoula. The MSU women continue to roll, drilling hapless Eastern Washington 79-47 in Bozeman. In a Saturday matinee, the MSU men were on the wrong end of a 74-49 blowout at Eastern Washington and Cheney, and the Montana men stayed atop the Big Sky standings by outlasting a scrappy Idaho team 82-71 in Moscow Saturday night.
The Grizz, they moved to 9-3 in Big Sky play and remained atop the league with that win. Montana made 20 of 30 field goal attempts in the second half. Idaho star Trevin Allen, he had 25 of his game-high 36 in the second half, but it just didn't matter.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law. Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hi, boys and girls. Monday is over from a work standpoint. Should I keep saying that? I mean, I don't know. What percentage of the people listening to this show is it 9 to 5?
I have no idea, man. The world of conformity is far behind us.
Is that conformity, or is it just like organized?
I just think that saying that there's like a work day and work hours and who does this when, I mean,
yeah, I don't know, man. It's a lot more ambiguous, it seems. There's still plenty of industries where you have your set hours, clock in, clock out. In Missoula, Montana, and western Montana, man, in the state of Montana, it seems though it's even hours that are set are very rarely 9 to 5, unless you're working in some of those federal gigs. You know, the bankers, the post office folks. Sure. That's regimented.
I think that one of the greatest parts about Missoula is how engaged everybody is in the element of the community, and I think that even most of the people that we could think of that are our peers or our business clients, so many of them, even if they do have a 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5, right now they're probably going to do something else that is maybe not work related, but either networking related, community related, volunteer, or something in the community. I think that's the best part about living here.
Brian Salonen's a 9 to 5 guy, right? Just straight by the book.
Well, right, but then he has after hours where he's entertaining folks all over town.
I'm just playing.
I hope he's
our
listening.
guy BS out there. Love Brian Salone. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio.
I mean, he coaches football in the fall.
Oh, he does. He's doing everything, man. We're gonna get him in here soon because he's got a story to tell us that we need to have out there. So we'll get to that. By the way, if you missed anything in the first hour, you can listen on the podcast, the Tutel Nuanez podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. And it is out there right now all the time. It's brought to us by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. And also, David, I wanted you to mention this because we talked earlier. So the Grizz Greats Coaching Tree podcasts are being released each week. And right now, Blaine Taylor's episode 4 is out. So if you haven't listened to that, go listen to it. It is thoroughly entertaining, enjoyable, and all that. But episode 5 comes out tomorrow. Dawn Holst is the subject of episode 5. And, David, you told me, hands down, you found this to be the most intriguing, interesting of the group thus far. Is that right?
So far, this is definitely the most compelling episode.
Dawn Holst is such a unique figure in this tree.
I completely agree with David.
Yeah.
When you're doing these interviews, especially because we're doing these and so many bonus episodes and stuff like that, I found it fascinating to listen to them back. I was cooking breakfast on, I guess it was Saturday morning, and I was listening to the Mike Montgomery episode, and my lady friend comes downstairs, and she's like, "Are you listening to yourself?"
Yes.
And I was like, I was, but I'm not listening to me. I'm listening to Mike Montgomery.
That's the difference between you and me. You are listening to Mike Montgomery. I am listening to myself.
Oh, man. I'm irrelevant when it comes to that podcast. It's all Mike carrying the weight.
Oh, yeah.
But I found all of these very, very interesting and compelling. Yeah. But Jim Brandenburg, Mike Montgomery, and Stu Morrill, I thought, and especially Blaine Taylor, all the things they say are interesting, and they throw out all sorts of tidbits, especially when you talk about recruiting great players like Larry Krystowiak or Michael Ray Richardson.
Yep.
Their thoughts on what Missoula was like in the 70s and 80s, I think that's very interesting too. But so much of the reason why they're interesting is because those guys are just so entertaining themselves. Their personality is the most interesting part about it.
Yeah.
The Dawn Holst has an interesting personality too. It's the revelations that he makes in the episode. They're the things that stuck with me the most out of every single guy that we interviewed for a variety of reasons. He talks about the shift in the way that Montana scheduled during his tenure. It went when the Big Sky, Dawn Holst was right at the end of when the Big Sky lost Boise State, Nevada.
Now, this isn't a spoiler alert deal, is it?
No.
Okay.
But I mean, it's just fascinating to hear his thoughts on the way that Montana had to change their scheduling because the Big Sky had some regional powerhouse teams that were just on your schedule.
Yeah.
And when that wasn't, now all of a sudden you have to go start searching for regional teams to play. And that coinciding with those three teams leading the Big Sky and the rise of Gonzaga, I think is very fascinating because all of a sudden now you're playing money games. This whole no one's going to come to Missoula to play you thing, that didn't really exist until right around the time that Dawn Holst was the head coach. And then he had to face a lot of other uphill battles, not only scheduling, but playing some of their home games, all of their home games one season at Sentinel. Dahlberg Arena was getting renovated.
That's right.
And I think that there's just so many different
Brought in Luke Longley, by the way. I don't know if that made the podcast or not, but Luke, I remember Luke Longley wandering into the Sentinel gym at one stage. Said, "This is my guy."
Let's come on the heels of that many changes in the league, as well as to follow a guy like Blaine Taylor, who left sort of abruptly to take a different job with Stanford, and then also to be the one guy in this tree that was let go.
Right.
And some of his thoughts and emotions about that. I mean, I thought Don Holst was incredibly candid, and I respected him so much for really sort of wearing his emotions on his sleeve in this interview. I thought it's really, really good. And I think that the other thing that makes him – is he the only one out of these guys that lives in Missoula right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think Travis DeCure lives in Missoula,
obviously Travis DeCure lives in Missoula.
If I've got it right.
But it would have been so easy for Don Holst to not stay here, and he has made his life as a Missoulian. I think that makes it unique to listen to, too. So check it out. I thought it was – I agree with David. I thought it was the most interesting one.
Grizz Greats Coaching Tree podcast brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, Stockman's Bar, and our friends at Berkshire Hathaway, Mike Nugent and the Bryan team at Berkshire Hathaway. Again, the first 4 episodes out now, including Blaine Taylor's the most recent, and tomorrow evening we will have the 5th episode with Don Holst. Colton, let's get into some Montana State football, shall we? They had we've known about this, the announcements of a couple new hires. Jimmy Beal, a Montana State alum, great player for the Cats, is back in the fold as a running backs coach, and now also Justin Udy, who is going to be the offensive coordinator, and for however you want to talk about it, it's a little different, but outside the family. He's not a guy, not that he needed to play there or whatever, but just not a ton of just ties even. Usually in coaching circles, whatever it is, the college level, the network is, first of all, very vast. Like the web that is thrown is usually huge by these coaches, but also there's not as many people even involved in it as you think. So
the degrees of separation
they're so small. They're 0 or 1, is usually what it is. So this is a pretty significant degree of separation. Justin Udy going to Montana State. All things considered, but a guy whose pedigree is outstanding, having been with Coach Yost and Coach Wells at Utah State and then at Texas Tech as well for the last 2 seasons, respectively, at those 2 institutions, but with the same coaching staffs. And I thought, and we'll hear from him in just a moment and from Jeff Choate, but they had their a welcoming press conference today of those guys. And as you listened to it and you heard, what Coach Choate had to say, and then these 2 guys talking as well, what were your kind of just broad thoughts on that?
I haven't actually listened to this in full duration yet. Had a busy afternoon, but I talked to my brother Brooks, who is co-founder of Skyline Sports MT. He was the one that was at the press conference. Yep. The analogy that he gave me about Justin Udy, I thought was a good one.
Him listening to it, by the way, is the same thing as you listening to it.
Well, he was there. I mean, he was conducting interviews.
What I'm saying. Right. It's like you two share a world. The two of you.
We've reached this interesting point in this country in general where for so long one of, if not the most important thing professionally was merit, experience. How long have you done something? That translated to you being better, more trustworthy. Experience equaled greatness in almost every industry. But with the rise of technology and young people's ability to master technology, that's gone by the wayside. You look at the newspaper industry, the kid who's coming fresh out of journalism school right now is straight up better at 75% of the things you can do on a sports desk as a sports editor, whether it's design, editing, multimedia. He's straight up better than the guy who's had the job for 35 years at the local paper. That's an interesting development in America. And you could have examples across industries. As my brother said, he said, Justin Udy reminds me of the kid who got a 4.0 in engineering school, and he's got the greatest design for the greatest bridge you ever saw in your town, but he's never built a bridge. But his bridge could be better than any bridge that anybody's ever built in your town. But will it be? You don't know. But you think it might. And I thought that was a great analogy.
Yeah, that is.
And I think that's where this hire came into play. the other thing that's unique about this is that so often coaches will have an opening on their staff. Say the offensive coordinator job would have come open before the wide receivers job. The wide receivers job was open at this time last year. If the OC job comes first and you get some really good young candidates that aren't quite ready, you file that name away, and then when you have a wide receivers or running back's job, you call that guy. That happens often in the coaching industry, where you get a young, ambitious guy who calls you on the OC or the DC job. He's not ready, but then you get your linebackers position open. Okay, we're going to slot him here, right? This was the opposite of that. Montana State's wide receivers job was open last January.
Yeah.
Justin Udy applied for it. Choate said, I don't really think you're a wide receivers guy, but I'm going to keep your name in mind. And then that was his first call for the OC and said, I think that you're way more advanced as a play caller and a quarterbacks guy. I would much rather have you do that than coach wide receivers. It's sort of the opposite scenario. So I thought that was interesting as well.
One thing that Jeff Choate said today, which I thought was outstanding on his part, and it's not in this sound here, but along those lines, he said he felt that Justin Udy was much more of a coordinator. And who they hired as the wide receivers coach?
Eric Frazier.
Said Coach Frazier, when he came in, he's a wide receiver himself. He knew everything on the specifics of technique and how he wanted to coach him and do all that stuff. It was there all the time.
Right.
But he also said, I had also, in Matt Miller, had a very young and new offensive coordinator who I wanted to feel no pressure whatsoever from somebody who I might bring in on that front.
Totally.
And he said, Justin Udy, frankly, was a guy who, this was the implication of what he said, was a guy who, if he had brought him in, presumably, has the breadth of offensive coordination ability, the breadth of bridge design, to use the analogy, where all of a sudden, if things aren't going well with the young offensive coordinator, you got another guy sitting here who probably could sit there and tweak some things on the thing, and now all of a sudden you got some pressure in there, maybe, rift in relationships. And I thought that was very insightful and thoughtful by Coach Choate to recognize that in the moment and go, well, you might be a better offensive guy, but I can't use you here and now in this. Two-Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN, right?
And I think that Jeff Choate says what he means, but you can also read between the lines quite often as well. Whenever there's coaching changes, I think everybody wants to drum up what's the drama. And sometimes there's absolutely no drama. And I think when Jeff Choate knew that the Bobcats were backed against the wall in 2018, they were 4-4. They were coming off a bad loss to Idaho State. Troy Anderson's playing quarterback. They're trying to piecemeal it together. And he made the decision he wanted to roll with Matt Miller. Well, he demoted Brian Armstrong and said, you're not involved in the offensive play calling anymore. You are the offensive line coach. And he fired Bob Cole. I don't think there's any drama behind it. I think it's exactly what you just said. Bob Cole's been an offensive play caller, an offensive coordinator in the FBS. I mean, he's coached in New Year's Six bowl games at Northern Illinois. He's in his 60s. You don't need that guy looking over the shoulder of the 28-year-old saying, well, no, this is how I would do it.
Right.
This is what I would do.
Right.
Here's what we should do. No, you just need to let Matt Miller just do it and just roll. And I don't think there was any drama behind it. I think it was just straight up. Choate wanted to see what Matt Miller could do, and it was sink or swim. And they swam. They made the playoffs. And then Miller was great last year, I thought, especially considering some of the limitations that they had at quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see the way that this hire transforms. I think that this specific hire, to me, has among the biggest boom or bust potential of any hire I can remember in recent memory in terms of an actual play caller. If this kid really is boy genius and he can take all of Montana State's personnel and he can do all the creative stuff that they've already been doing and then accentuate it and diversify it,
add to it, yeah,
home run. If his lack of experience kills them, or like you were saying, if you have a defensive-minded head coach, some of the stalwart coaches of your program are defensive guys, and this guy's expected to be the leader of the offense, and he can't handle that sort of responsibility, it could be bad. But I just don't expect that to be the case. I think that all Montana State needs to do is continue doing what they do well, and they'll be at least competitive offensively because they're going to be nasty on defense again. That's just the identity that they've been able to build. And at the end of the day, just keep it simple, stupid, right? I mean, you only lose Mitch Brown on the offensive line. You got everybody else back besides Travis Johnson and Kevin Cassis. Turn around and hand the ball at 22. Give the ball to Isaiah Fonse. That's what you need to do.
Justin Udy was asked in the press conference today just about his philosophy and what it was. And I thought, again, considering he's coming from Texas Tech, which has heretofore been a sort of air raid offense and all that kind of stuff. They didn't do exactly that, but they certainly threw the ball a ton this past season. Utah State not nearly as much, more running at Utah State, but was asked about his offensive philosophy and play calling, which maybe does have more throwing in it than what Montana State has been accustomed to. I thought his answer here was very interesting.
That's one thing when we went through the interview process that I felt really comfortable with, that married up well, was just the identity of the program is that of a blue-collar football program. And the kids that play here are kind of all for each other. And in saying that, it makes it easier to distribute the football around when guys are selfless and they're willing to see their other teammates have success. And with that being the culture, it really plays into the fact that I want to be able to run the ball. I want to be physical. You have to control the run game with some things that you do in the pass game. To sit here and say, yeah, we're going to throw it 60 times a game, or hey, we're going to run it 60 times. That's not how I operate. It's more based off the culture and the ability to get playmakers the football. That's what I focus on. Guys need touches because that's what's going to help us be successful.
The thing that I thought was just so sort of insightful here and interesting is he tied his philosophy as a play caller, as an offensive schemer, to the culture, right? Usually the culture of a program is thought of as sort of maybe the motivational engine of the team. This is why you go out and play, for your brothers in arms and all of that stuff. But he says, look, if you're a blue-collar team, which Montana State is, if this whole thing is about family, which is what Jeff Choate has built this whole thing about, then you don't, not only do you not care, you're happy when this guy and this guy and this guy get the ball and you're just out blocking on the perimeter or whatever it is. You're doing the things that you need to do as a team to be successful. And within the context of that, what am I here to do? Get the playmakers footballs. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's in the run game, in the pass game, however it is. We got a certain number of guys who we will identify, and certainly some of whom are known commodities, that have to touch the football, period, end of story, one way or another. And this is a place where that can be done without, not only without resentment, but hopefully even with advocacy from other teammates who aren't touching the ball as much.
Well, and Choate always says this, and he's saying it as a sales pitch and a marketing element for their recruiting, but he also says it out of just pure truth. They don't put kids in boxes at Montana State. And now that comes with all the benefits and some of the downfalls of it, too. Sometimes I think they get a little bit too complicated, but they had 30-plus guys touch the ball on offense last year. They had 22 guys get carries out of the backfield. If you can make any sort of play offensively, they're going to find a way to get you the ball.
That is astounding that 22 dudes. Think about that. You could have all the wide receivers and all the running backs carry the football in your maybe middle teens.
Right.
22 guys.
And that's the thing that they don't care what your position is.
Right.
Callahan O'Reilly scored a 66-yard touchdown. He's their starting middle linebacker, their leading tackler. Troy Anderson's getting touches. Travis Johnson's getting touches at 4 different positions. They give guys the ball. That in itself, I think, is a huge selling point in recruiting. And I think it also makes it so that what you run doesn't really matter. It's how creative are you. The other thing we talk about, culture, part of the family culture is not putting kids in boxes, but part of the family culture is the way that they practice, especially during the good weather times. From late spring through the summer and then through fall camp, Montana State, they have Deitch Field, which is 4 football fields next to each other. When you go to fall camp, they're repping the same thing on all 4 fields with all 4 strings. So you're at most programs, anything beyond the number 2 quarterback is not getting reps ever. They might get a series here, a series there. If you're the 3rd string guy, 4th, 5th, 6th guys, they're not getting reps ever.
Yeah.
Montana State, you got 4 quarterbacks going. And again, pluses and minuses, right? Maybe if they just prioritize putting all their energy into the top guy, they'd be better at quarterback. But on the other hand, it makes you so much better at every other position. And that's how it works. You can watch the 3-4 field is what we call it during fall camp, and it'll be a whole different mix of guys every single day because you'll be able to play your way onto the 2 field. And then all of a sudden you play your way onto the 1 field.
Yeah.
You're getting reps. That's what they're selling to kids. Do you love football? If you love football, you can come here and is everybody going to play on game day? No, but more people are going to play on game day than at most schools.
Yeah.
But is everybody going to play all the other days, all 200 other days that you're out there grinding through practice? Absolutely you are. And if you can prove yourself we'll figure out a way to get it to you. So I think that's going to be the most interesting part is I think this day and age, you don't necessarily have to have this crazy offensive identity unless you have one that is just tried and true, and that's what you have, that's what you've recruited to. The fact that their recruiting model is just recruit athletes and we'll figure out the rest later. Right. If Justin Udy's just creative, here's what we got on the roster, here's how we're going to get these guys the ball. You don't have to have a system. You just run whatever the game plan caters to.
I mean, you recruit to your offensive identity, and if you want to run the ball, and certainly Jeff Choate has done that. But if Travis Johnson walks through those doors, he alters your identity. I mean, your identity just is the playmaking individuals that you have. And for Montana State, the playmaking individuals have been largely on their offensive line. I mean, so that's part of it.
Well, I think about the way their offense has evolved. When Chris Murray was as a sophomore, when he was actually the first full-time starter for the full season, they ran zone read all the time. Junior year, the third year, junior year, Jeff Choate's third year at the helm.
Yes, junior year.
They ran basically the wing tee out of the gun with Troy Anderson.
Right.
Last year, they have a more traditional style quarterback that ran a completely non-traditional offense with all these jet sweep motions and inside zone, counter. The brilliance of it is that it all starts with the guys up front. Up front, it's the same. They're just running gap scheme the whole time. And then everything around it is all the window dressing, all the complications. So all your job is, Mr. Slot Receiver, is just to figure out, okay, here's the 8 ways I could get the ball this week. That's it.
Yeah.
Everybody else do their job, and that's what makes it so hard. I mean, I think that Montana State's offense has taken a ton of heat the last couple of years because they don't throw the ball like so many teams in the league, so many teams in college football. But if you actually watch it, and if you were to interview defensive coordinators across the league, I absolutely guarantee you they would all say that the biggest nightmare in the league to make game plans for is the Cats.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Want to hear from Jeff Choate. We're up against it, so we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll hear from Jeff Choate. We'll also get into a little bit of high school hoops, some stuff going on. Number one team in the state was handed its first loss. We'll tell you who right after this. Hey, the Polaris New Year's sales event is on, and now is the time to find your perfect ride at Kurtz Polaris with financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months and savings of up to $3,500. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and on Highway 83 in Sealy. The mountains are full of snow, getting more every single day. I know, I've been there. Kurtz has all the best machines, apparel, and accessories to take full advantage of the season. Have the most fun you can have safely, looking good, staying warm. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. It's the most fun you can have in snow. Kurtz Polaris, winter awaits.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at SelwayArmory.com.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at MontanaAdvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Farmer State Bank is proud to share that our customer, Phillipsburg Brewing Company, has been crafting quality, handcrafted beer since 2012. Congratulations to Nolan and Kathy Smith and the entire team at Phillipsburg Brewing Company on their award-winning brews. The next time you see her, ask Kathy why she calls Farmer State Bank best bank ever. Farmer State Bank, helping businesses succeed since 1907. Member FDIC.
College basketball madness is happening again, and there's only one place in town to catch all the games, the Desperado. Catch every buzzer beater, every Cinderella story, and every upset on the Despo's 32 TVs, while getting your fill of the best hot wings Missoula has to offer, of course. Bracket busted? The Despo's got you covered there too, with cold drinks by the pint or pitcher. The Despo is your headquarters for NCAA basketball, NHL, and NASCAR too. The Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell, across from the Y.
Hey, boys and girls, Ryan Tutel and Colton Nuanez here, and hope you know by now that Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast series, is out and available wherever you get your podcasts. Interviews with every single one of the living University of Montana head men's basketball coaches. We are releasing week by week, and this week, Colton, one of our favorites, Blaine Taylor.
Native son of the Garden City, a star basketball player at Missoula Hellgate, a star in his own right for the Montana Grizzlies as a player and the head coach for the duration, or almost the duration, of the 1990s. Blaine Taylor definitely one of the most well-liked and memorable members of this epic coaching tree.
Just search Grizz Greats wherever you get your podcasts and listen to all 3 episodes that are out now with the first 3 coaches and the bonus episodes accompanying them, and now episode 4 with Blaine Taylor. Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast, is brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, the company that connects you more, the Bryan Brothers and Mike Nugent at Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, and Stockman's Bar, proud supporters of Montana basketball for 50.
Currently slated as a late-round pick in the NFL draft, which is April 23rd through the 25th.
All of Montana's Big Sky Conference basketball teams, other than the Montana State men, earned wins on Saturday to keep pace in the league title race. The Lady Grizz started off a successful Saturday by completing the weekend sweep with a gritty 69-60 win over second-place Idaho in Missoula. The MSU women continued rolling, drilling hapless Eastern Washington 79-47 to stay in first place. The MSU men played a Saturday matinee at Eastern Washington and were on the wrong end of a 74-49 blowout, and the Montana men completed their weekend sweep by outlasting a scrappy Idaho team 82-71 to stay atop the Big Sky standings.
With that win, the Grizz men moved to 9-3 in Big Sky play and remain atop the league. They shot 20 out of 30 field goal attempts, which they made in the second half. Trayvon Allen for Idaho had 25 of his game-high 36 in the after halftime, but the Grizz shut down the rest of the team to get the win.
Something in the air tonight. Gotta want me taken. Baby, don't you wanna ride? Got to make it to the other side. I've got demons snapping at my heels tonight.
An upset. High school hoops, but first want to wrap up what we're talking about Montana State football. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, across the state and around the world on YouTube. Check out the Tutel Nuanez YouTube TV channel. We got it out there for you. You can also listen live through the website, 1029ESPN.com. The stream is there. It's available all the time thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Coulter, we're talking about the introductory press conferences today for the Montana State Bobcats. Jimmy Beal hired as the running backs coach, Justin Udy as the offensive coordinator. But I thought your brother asked a very good question of Jeff Choate himself in regards to what it is to have a coaching staff that is primarily built up of young guys and then have the team be as successful as they've been, 2 straight postseasons, obviously the Final Four, national semifinal, and then the opportunities that coaches on that staff who are young and coming up in the business get and go on and end up leaving the staff for. And here's what Jeff Choate had to say in response to that.
I mean, you kind of look over the hill, and they've kind of done it a little bit differently. You know, they've got more mature coaches that have kind of been around the block and are probably not looking for that next job. They're probably, digging in and enjoying the time that they have to enjoy the FCS level, because it's so different than the Power 5. Because it is frustrating as a head coach to go through this kind of revolving door. And I think one of the things that's happened over time is really I'm probably more connected to our players than any other coach on our team. Outside of, Brian, who's been here the whole time, and Byron, who's been here the whole time. But I think the guys they kind of start to figure out, who's the consistent force in our lives. And so probably puts a little bit more responsibility on me to make sure that I'm connected to those kids emotionally. But that's what I enjoy about this job by and large anyway. And so what I tell them, and I've told you this, coaches come and go, the players of the program. And as long as I'm here, there's going to be certain things that we believe. Our DNA isn't going to change. We're bringing in people that I feel like can enhance what we're doing and give us the best chance to win right now, because those seniors deserve it. That junior that might end up having an ACL injury and never getting a chance to play again, they deserve it.
You know, it's interesting because whenever you have a coaching change, it's like head coach. It's a rebuild or whatever. But what about the kid who has been at the program 3 years, 4 years, fifth year senior, whatever it might be?
Right.
Now, this is different from that. But, again, Justin Udy, to me, let's just say it like this. Positionally, this is the number 2 guy in the organization from a coaching standpoint.
Yep.
Because Jeff Choate is a defensive guy. Now, he said elsewhere in this press conference, one of the things he likes about Justin Udy is that he could probably handle the rants that he's going to go on because he, that being Jeff Choate, has an opinion on everything. And so he's going to offer that opinion regardless, and that's just who he is, and that's fine, and he's the head coach. So he has that liberty to do that, and that will include the offensive side of the ball. But the point is that Justin Udy is he's not going to be autonomous, I guess I would say, but he is going to
There's no chance.
No, that's what I'm saying. He's not going to be autonomous, but he is going to be a decision maker, and he's going to create this offensively, whereas Jeff Choate is going to be a significant factor in creating what happens defensively. Now, Jeff Choate can tweak and change and will be the final say on all of it, okay? I get that. But there's going to be more of a level of responsibility, it seems to me, in game plan preparation and putting the things together. Obviously with input, but for the offensive guy. That's why I think the defensive coordinator is the number 3 spot in the organizational chart that is the Montana State Podcast.
Choate, I think, particularly for a first-time head coach, has done as good a job as anybody that I've observed in, after the season's over, looking at his own weaknesses in the way that he operates in the program and changing those. When he first got the job, he was a defensive line coach and a defensive coordinator coaching a football team. I think he would be the first to tell you that there was a lot of things he didn't know that he had to learn the hard way, both in roster management, player management, the way he operated, all the way around. Not letting his coaches coach as much as maybe they needed to. He has grown so tremendously in that element. He really is the overseer now. And I don't think that he meddles nearly as much as he used to. And I think he does do a good job of letting his coaches coach, and then he's the guy that's really gauging the locker room. And we talk about the comparing and contrasting Jeff Choate and Bobby Hauck all the time. And I think that there's this notion in the state of Montana that they're so similar because they come from special teams backgrounds. They're intense guys. They're from small towns. They're charismatic.
They want to create teams predicated on toughness.
Toughness, defense.
Yeah.
There is some parallels, but largely the way that they operate, especially the way they build their staffs, opposite. The way that they want to build culture, not that similar in terms of what they want it to be.
Their personalities are quite different too, even though they're both serious in their own way.
They're serious and intense, but their personalities are incredibly different. Yes. I mean, Hauck is a football lifer. Choate is a teacher who then became a football lifer.
Yeah,
that's a huge difference. But I think that Choate, I'll put that point to rest. He's done a great job evolving into a true head coach, and he wants his role to be the father figure of the program to every player, and he wants harmony within the roster, within the locker room, so that guys will sell out for each other. But I think that what we have now here, what do these two head coaches want it to be about? They're different, but I think that they both have a chance to be equally effective, because in this day and age in college football and college sports, so much of it is not about how good the players you get are. It's how many good players can you get to get along? How many good players can you get to stay? If it was just about all the headliner recruits, there wouldn't be this parity in college football, or as we see at the top level of the FBS, there isn't parity because they do just get all the best players. That's why Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson are in the playoff year in and year out. And every once in a while, somebody else who also has all the other best players. I mean, if you go to Rivals.com right now, or 24/7, and you look at the top 100 recruits, they're going to like 6 schools: LSU, Georgia, Florida, and then the ones I just named: Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson. I mean, that's pretty much it. Every once in a while, you might sneak a Oregon in there or whatever, but almost all the top guys are going to the top schools. But then after that, it's all about how do you get guys to get along. So Choate, he talked about all on December 22nd and in his most recent signing day press conference. He said, statistics are great, but we're not going to recruit a guy who didn't produce at a high level in high school. Measurables are great, but we're probably not going to recruit a guy who doesn't have high measurables either. We can find kids all across the board. He said to me as a head coach, I'm worried about how is this kid as a person? What's his family like? How much does he prioritize family? What does he think of the opportunity that there is at Montana State? How much does he want to be a part of a community? How much does he want to be a part of something? Now, Coach Hauck, his message is simple, and we just heard it from Brandon Casey last hour. If you missed it, you can check it out, 1029ESPN.com on the podcast. It'll be up there a little bit later on this evening. Brandon Casey said, I think Montana's knocking on the door of a championship. I want to win. I'm about winning. I want to be a part of that. That is why I'm going to Montana, to win. And that's what Bobby Hauck sells to kids. How special of an experience it is to win, where it can resonate around an entire community and the entire state, but also how special it is to be a Grizz. And you can say whatever you want if you're outside of the bubble of believing that to be true, but that's what he sells to guys. And when they were at their best, the 2009 Grizz, that was my class of guys, their individual talent was pretty good. And they had some exceptional guys like Shan Schillinger and Mark Mariani, but mostly those dudes, they went 14-0 and went all the way to the national championship in Chattanooga, Tennessee, because they would have died for each other. Because they thought it was so special to be a Grizz and to be Grizz together. That's it. It's the end-all, be-all. It was everything. And that's what Coach Hauck creates, and that's what he keeps talking about, is this is not about 3-star recruits. Like when Montana had the number 8 recruiting class, that's so far down the list on what he wants. He wants dudes that are going to sacrifice for the organization. And that's what he did so well, making number 104 out of 104 on the roster know that his role is exceptionally important to the team, but also that you are a part of something special, even if you are the last dude on the roster. Yeah. So it's going to be so interesting to see the way that these two play it off of each other. Choate always says, how do we add value to your life? That's what they're selling. Bobby Hauck says, this is going to be your life, and it's going to be spectacular.
Right.
Two different types of kids are going to choose that.
Yep.
But I think it's going to, I think that each one is effective, but then it comes down to the recruiting. It's not like watching film and evaluating guys the way they practice or the way they play in games. It's about what are you like as a person. Yeah. And that's what makes this so fascinating to me. But I think this day and age of college football, if you're not Alabama and Oregon, that's how you should recruit.
Stu Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio. Very interesting stuff, and we got a lot of time to talk about this over the coming months, so we'll look forward to doing just that. But let's transition now briefly to a little bit of high school stuff. Coulter, it's our Prep Extra segment. It's brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. Farmers State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907. And right now, go online, farmersebank.com. They are offering $10,000 scholarships to high school seniors across western Montana. That's a lot. $100,000, by the way, if you're adding it up at home. If you're a high school senior, hopefully you could do that math without my assistant. That will get you into school. Assistance. Then I missaid the word. That's my problem. It's only a radio gig that I've got. Anyway, go online, check that out, and get yourself a scholarship. Coulter, the Hellgate boys, undefeated in, the season, Class AA. And guess what? They still are. But the Hellgate girls, they are responsible for the biggest upset we've seen this so far this season. Formerly undefeated Helena Capital, falling to the Missoula Hellgate girls. This Hellgate girls team, man, is something else. 2 years ago and going back, the Hellgate girls were an also-ran. They were not really – it was the Sentinel girls primarily and a couple of the Helena schools, Helena High, involved in there. Last year, kind of out of nowhere, Missoula Hellgate went on to have a fantastic year, and now here they are. The number one team in the state, I don't know if they're 10 or 11-0, Helena Capital coming into this game, and they lose to the Missoula Hellgate girls.
I was just sending a quick text to one of my buddies who's a Hellgate alum because I was trying to get the name. I cannot remember this gentleman's name, but Hellgate has a new principal. They've had a new principal for about 3 years. But he came in and said, we are going to make Hellgate elite at everything, not just the things that Hellgate's already good in, because Hellgate has always been really good academically, especially in the humanities. They've always been really good in the arts, particularly band, choir, and even the performance arts. And they've always been good at the sort of non-headliner sports, soccer, tennis, and they've always been good in boys basketball.
Yeah.
But since this gentleman took over, he's really revamped every element of Hellgate, including the sports programs too. And I think Rob Henthorn with
Jensen Miller.
There you go, Jensen Miller. I think that with the revitalization of the girls basketball program, I think Rob Henthorn's doing a great job. I mean, the football team, you can say 2-8 all you want. 2-8 is like winning the Super Bowl compared to where they were 50-plus losses in a row.
Right.
And so they've done a tremendous job across the board at Hellgate. I think the kids are getting a great experience down there. But this Hellgate girls team, they were already good.
Yeah.
And they lost the Blakesley girl last year. She's at Montana State now. Or excuse me, Montana State Billings. But they returned everybody else. They got the Henthorn twins who are really good. But then they added a pair of twin towers in Nate Colville's daughters. He's one of Shannon Schwain's assistants. We've seen Nate. We've hung out with Nate. Nate goes about 6'6", 6'7". He's a big dude. And his daughters are like up to his ear already.
Oh, yeah.
One's a junior, one's a freshman. I think that they're
6'4".
both 6'3", 6'4", and talented too. So that's been a really good shot in the arm. But that's a big win because this Helena Capital group, we talk about this all the time when it comes to girls sports in Montana. So often the tie between success in volleyball and basketball carries over. Helena Capital dominant in volleyball this year, state champions, and they parlayed that into. I mean, they have a couple Division I girls that are going. I mean, one's going to Boise State. They have twins too, the Birch twins. One's going to Boise State. I think one's going to either here or Montana State. Regardless, 2 Division I signees, and they parlayed that success in volleyball into being undefeated until this weekend. But that's a huge win for the Hellgate girls. So we'll see if they can keep it rolling. But it's creeping up on us, Gus. I mean, I think it's senior night around the state in a lot of different places. Districts is coming up soon. So it'll be state tournament time before we know it, but the postseason is almost upon us.
We'll be keeping a very close eye on that, certainly as this regular season winds down and the postseason winds up. So our Prep Extra segment is brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. Again, Farmers State Bank giving away $10,000 scholarships to seniors across western Montana. Go online to farmersebank.com. By the way, it's nice to have local things going on, but then all of a sudden maybe you think there's some nepotism or somebody knows somebody, that kind of thing. Hey, listen, Farmers State Bank is hiring a third-party organization to select the winners, to select the best entrants. So there's an impartiality on this thing, okay? So everybody's got an equal opportunity. This is a great deal. I mean, $10,000 a school, you can't do better than that, thanks to Farmers State Bank. We'll take a quick break, come back. The Oscars were last night. Coulter and I, we know people.
Romance your Valentine at the Montana Club with our 4-course Lover's Delight for 2, featuring Parmesan crusted artichoke hearts, succulent king crab legs, perfectly grilled Angus steaks, and a grilled lobster tail, followed by our luscious vanilla bean cake with fresh raspberries. Just one of the mouth-watering options to be savored on our special Valentine menu, served February 13th through the 16th at the Montana Club. See the full menu at montanaclub.com on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Matcha is a versatile green tea chock full of health benefits. Here at Florence Coffee, our high-quality matcha is full of antioxidants, fiber, and chlorophyll, while providing rich, smooth flavor to any matcha drink. Whether you order your matcha hot, iced, or blended, it'll taste great and give your body the boost it needs. Come to any Florence Coffee location or go to florencecoffeeco.com.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
Hey, Gus, you ever heard of Magic Johnson?
Rings a bell.
One of the greatest basketball superstars of all time played for a man named Judd Heathcote at Michigan State. And guess what? Judd Heathcote started his career at the University of Montana.
Coulter, did you know that 2 former University of Montana head coaches have been head coaches in the NBA and 1 on Team USA?
Isn't that amazing?
And that's why we've created Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast. Get it wherever you get your podcast. Just search Grizz Greats.
It's a phenomenal and historic podcast series proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. Your favorite place in the world besides Montana is Seattle, right, Gus?
That's right. The only thing I've been missing since I moved back to Montana, teriyaki on every street corner.
Well, if you want real Seattle-style teriyaki, you got to hit up Dobie's Teriyaki downtown. If you need a reason to try it, Tutel Nuanez, we got you covered. We're going to be giving away free Dobie's Teriyaki every single day the first 2 weeks of February on Tutel Nuanez.
Does the philanthropy no end?
We are very good to our listeners. So tune in to Tutel Nuanez 4 to 6 every day, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Gus, remember how scared you were to get a facial before you had one at Kindred Skin and Soul?
I'd had one before in Southeast Asia and didn't realize it was going to feel like getting hit in the face with a bat.
The experience downtown, though, was much better, right?
It didn't scar me emotionally or physically. It was pleasant and wonderful in every way.
Valentine's Day is coming up, gents, and we know you have not gotten your lady a present, so tune in to Tutel Nuanez over the next 2 weeks for your chance to win a $50 gift card at Kindred Skin and Soul, downtown Missoula.
Tutel Nuanez 4 to 6 every weekday, ESPN Radio.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
The Academy Awards last night, Coulter.
Every day and every night.
Brad Pitt, a big winner. Laura Dern. Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, good for them. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. If you missed anything of the show, check it out on the podcast. The Tutel Nuanez podcast is out every single day. Well, every weekday anyways. Do the show. Go check it out wherever you get your podcasts. And give it a listen, rate, review, subscribe. We appreciate all of that. The Tutel Nuanez. Being nominated as a finalist for an Academy Award last night, an Oscar. How about that?
Deservedly so.
And phenomenal film. And the folks who are sitting here in this very studio are now in Los Angeles, Hollywood, California. I don't know where they do the thing, but somewhere in the anthill. And they're sitting there, and they did not win, by the way, in the category, if you're wondering. Learning to skateboard in a war zone if you're a girl was the winner of that category, the documentary short. But to have them there, you see all the photographs coming off, all the people that they're standing with, hanging out, spending time with, and so on and so forth. Tremendous. And we spent, really about 3 days with them ultimately, between initially the interview, then going to the film and spending out, and then going, showing some of Missoula's finer points to the crew that was in town, which I feel very good about myself. And so, I don't know, man, it's something else to see these people who were that none you and I and nobody, I think, probably in this town, in this community, in the state of Montana, really knew who they were beforehand. If you listened to the interview, if you saw the film, it's pretty unforgettable to me. I think it's an unbelievable interview, by the way. It's one of my favorites that we've ever done. I thought
Absolutely.
It was before we saw the fit. We hadn't seen the film yet. It hadn't been screened, anything like that. Bruce Franks walks in here, and I thought it was one of the most interesting, poignant, and just broadly important interviews that we've ever had on this show. And then for this whole thing to go full cycle, and last night they're sitting there, with Brad and so forth. Leo, pretty good. So congratulations to them, the whole crew associated with that thing.
I mean, it was absolutely the best part of the otherwise nauseating Oscars last night, but we won't go down
shots fired.
I mean, we won't go down that road.
Well, you just did.
No, it's we're good. I enjoy film. I don't enjoy Hollywood.
I get that.
I loved Bruce Franks, though. Meeting him, I thought was inspiring. I think it's what journalism's all about. I thought the film was amazing. I thought his story shows you. When we talk about the American dream, rising from, whatever you start to living in the white picket fence on the house, that's not what it's about, man. Yeah. That's not what it's about. What you acquire in your life and the house you live in and the car you drive, that's nothing. How do you make a difference in your community? For Bruce Franks to live the life that he lived, as a dude who lived in the projects, as a dude whose brother got shot and killed, to then not just complain about his status in the world, but to actually go and make a difference, to get elected to the state senate of Missouri, to make a difference for his community, to buck the status quo. That's what it's all about. Yeah. That's the American dream. I thought Bruce Franks was awesome on this show. I thought that documentary was awesome. I was sad that he did not win. But either way, the documentary does not lose any sort of luster or importance. Go watch it, because I think that is what we need more of in terms of just understanding all the different sectors of this country and this